Hello and welcome to Mind of a Champion. This is part 3 of a series that we've made. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, make sure that you check back for those, because so many great stories shared so far by former Fijian coach, gold medal winning coach Ben Ryan, as well as the guy who coached the Australian women's sevens team to gold, Tim Walsh. Today we have a special guest joining us also from down under. He's probably one of the most loved voices, particularly on the Sevens World Circuit, the HSBC Sevens World Circuit. Sean Maloney, how are you doing?
If only I got that same love and attention at home, Elma, that'd be a real uptick. But I got to say, I'm so thrilled to be here alongside you and Ben and Tim. Such illustrious company, and I just can't wait to sink my teeth in right now.
Sink your teeth in. Before we started rolling, you were already giving Tim so much heat. Is that just classic Aussie banter? You guys just leveling up?
Well, I'm very lucky in that I've spent a lot of time with both these guys across the circuit and even in other parts around the world of rugby, and they are two of the best. They give so much to the game. They are so wonderful. They're such wonderful brother ambassadors, and I'm really looking forward to hearing some other bits and pieces over the next little bit from these two around what happened post-Olympics as well. So I am pumped, ready to go.
Okay, so speaking of going way back, these two, of course, go way, way, way back. And we found photographic evidence of this. It's been something that we have been a little too preoccupied by. But we have the image that proves the heritage. Oh, look at the two of you.
I'm on my tiptoes there. It's excellent.
Who's the guy on your right, Benny?
Ali James. So Ali's the head physio for Wasps, and was a terrific centre. We were weights partners together, so he used to spot me, and then he'd bench me, clean.
I was going to say, wise move not taking the jersey off there, Walshy. You're a clever man.
Tim, you probably know better than me. When was this? 2000 and something?
2007, maybe.
Yeah, maybe I was.
I think. Yeah.
It might have been the year that I was also my first year with England Sevens, but I was part-time doing that because I had a full-time job with Newbury in the Championship with Walshy. And then I went full-time, and then Tim, you stayed another year, didn't you? And then left.
Yeah. I had another year at Newbury. Yeah, after I imparted all my sevens knowledge onto you.
That was pretty. Year. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I knew not very much really about international sevens when I took the job, and they gave me a book. I think my last game was like everything you need to know about sevens, a book, and then I took Walsh out for lunch and to try to find out a bit more. But I'm a fast learner.
And then you won an Olympic medal. So speaking of the Olympic medals, let's take a look at exactly what happens when you win. I think a lot of Olympians might not be prepared for the fact that then you have more cameras in your face than ever before. Let's travel back to 2016.
Rugby sevens is the fastest growing women's sport in the world at the moment. And, for it to be in the Olympics and for us to now, be the first ever gold medalist for the Olympics for rugby sevens is, wow, I just said that out loud. It's amazing. We're making history here, and it's, credit to World Rugby for jumping on board the IOC. And I can't wait to see where it goes.
It's a credit to our management and all our supporters at home and our squad of 21. It's been a whole team effort, and to be honest, we couldn't have done it without them. And this is just a reward for all the girls' hard work. And today for us, it became a reality. I guess once we turned professional, the Olympics was on the radar, and from day one, we always wanted to win a gold medal.
As an 8-year-old kid, I've dreamt about being an Olympian for such a long time. To be crowned with that gold medal, alongside those girls, my family, was very emotional.
I guess for us, we've had a landmark day in Australian sporting history, and if we can leave a legacy and be role models for the next generation of future women's rugby players, coming through the ranks that, you know, we're winning at the end of the day. Rugby's winning.
The tournament did go according to plan. We wanted to win all 6 games. And when we got into the Olympic Games village, we stayed very, very tight as a team. We took out all distractions. We flew in very late and we minimised any possible interruptions to our programme. I think we did it better than anybody else. Phones were shut down and locked away. And we just concentrated on the task at hand again and delivered. We were untouchable, and without again sounding arrogant, it didn't really matter who was opposite us. With that performance that we put in, we would have beaten anyone. GB, Japan, New Zealand all defended the same way, so we almost had a practice run going into that final of what we were going to try and do. We knew we had to be relaxed going into this. We had to rest. We were determined to play the Fijian way in the final, and to do that I had to be true to our values and how we were going to be going into that. So there was no crying or jumping up and down in the changing room. We said a few things that we'll keep between the team, and then they ran out and they were absolutely brilliant, focused and forward thinking in what they were trying to do on the field.
Beautiful memories. Is that how you remember it, Tim? Give us the coach's perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a plan and everything sort of goes according to plan, it very rarely happens, and almost exceeded plans. Because we respected every opposition. We had specific plans. We were a team that had our own way, but also adapted slightly to our opposition, and we had very specific ways to play against certain opposition. And then when you see it all unfold exactly the way that you'd planned, and then I think I said in the last episode, we end up playing the final against New Zealand on a Tuesday morning in Australia at 8 a.m. And you saw Shannon and Shani just talking there. They ended up being the co-captains for the team, and the way that they led the team, they kept them composed, they kept them focused, was just an incredible achievement for them to then see it sort of roll on post the Olympics, and for those two, hopefully into 2021 as well.
Shawnee, tell me about the kind of attention to this particular item during the Olympics back in Australia.
These 2 games are still so vivid in my memory, Elma, because I was lucky enough to watch Walshy and the women get it done against NZ with my 4-year-old daughter at the time, sitting on my shoulders in the lounge room. As you said, it was 8 a.m. in the morning, and the immediate impact that it had was extraordinary. Like, I'm talking within a few days, we had kids rolling out to days at school where they go in fancy dressed up as Charlotte, dressed up as Quirky, going in with headgear like M. Cherry. It was immediate, maybe cut through more than anything I'd seen since probably in terms of rugby since the 99 World Cup that the Wallabies won. So that was immediate. And then I'll throw my other bit in around Fiji after Benny takes us back.
Ben, take me to what happened on the field immediately after the final whistle.
Some of it is blurry. I'm getting old, so my memory's not good at the best of times, really. But the game had been won, and then you get into the logistics. I'm worried that all the boys haven't brought their tracksuit tops that they've got to wear on the podium. So Rapati's running around trying to get that sorted, and the Prime Minister's got a big bowl of kava that he's dishing out to everyone, and then we get onto the podium, and the boys take a kneel down, because that's the way to accept a gift in Fiji, and they do the thombo, the double clap, cupped, and that was obviously returned by Princess Anne, and then off we went, and then into a bit of a press conference, some drug testing, and back to the village. So. For me, like the exciting bit is the game, and that immediate when the whistle blows, and whether you're on the right side of the ledger or not. After that, that's what it's all downhill from there, really. For me, the enthusiasm has gone, and it's then also the next bit where we're going to get lift off again, and everyone's going to be full of fervour is when we land in Fiji.
So I was lucky enough, and Benny, this is so vivid again, in the same way that I watched the Aussie women get it done with my daughter. I was lucky enough to be in the snow with a couple of ex-Wallabies at the time. So we're huddled around mobile phones in the middle of the ski fields here in Australia watching Fiji annihilate GB in the big one. And at the time we said, we've got to go. We've got to be there. We've got to get in and around what this is going to mean for Fiji as a whole. So we booked flights, and a week, I think, later, it might have been, Benny, we were in Semikunatani's village up in the interior on the river in the town of Navayango, and it was the most incredible spiritual experience, rugby related, I've ever been lucky enough to be a part of. It was unbelievable what it meant to that village and to the broader country.
I just Semi's backstory itself is just ridiculous, and it's great that people can we can tell these stories on the back of winning gold medals in the Olympics. We get to tell these stories that is just shows you like it's so much more than rugby, and the Olympics gives us this opportunity really to sing the praises of the really cool bits that rugby can bring.
They were in tears, Elma. Like, it was so extraordinary. Like, Benny, I think I'm right in saying Semi lost his mum quite early. So there was a group of elderly ladies from around his tiny little village who basically brought him up from day one. And they're in tears. George Gregan's there with us as well. He's in tears. It's hard to encapsulate it in words because it was just so moving seeing how much it meant.
Yeah, and there's so much significance to that result. We're going to show you some images from what happened on the ground in Fiji in a minute, but let's just quickly rewind back to Rio and what happened immediately after. And there's some great stories here from Fiji's manager, Rupate Kavesi. Sekulini Sao tells some great ones as well. But let's start with Aussie player Emma Tonegato on what happened after the match.
I think after the game, I got drug tested, actually. I think me and Alicia Quirk got drug tested and we were like, oh my gosh, are you joking? So we went and did our drug test and then came back out. And I think we had a few beers and drinks with our family who were kind of came around near the back of the stadium. So that was really special. So yeah, I don't know, we just kind of were on the bus and we were just all sitting there looking at our medals and we're just like, what is happening? And then we made a plan for the night. I think Bill Pulver put on a tab at a hotel for us. So we got home, got dressed, and then went out. Everyone kind of knew us as the Golden Girls or the Rugby Girls, and it was so lovely and really looked after us. We got to go out and watch heaps of sports, and we kind of, I guess, got a little bit of preferential treatment within the Olympic Committee, so that was really cool. We're in the lift in the Australia building, and all the basketballers were in there, like Patty Mills and, people that play NBA, and we were like, oh my God, like, you're the basketballers. And they were like, oh my God, you're the Rugby Girls. And we were like, oh my God, they know who we are.
I'm not athletes, especially those joining athletes, they're like, oh, you guys won gold at Sevens, congratulations, And, and we go to the cafe and people are standing there trying to win votes to be selected into the athletes committee, and they say, oh, you guys are the Fiji boys, from Germany. And I'm like, okay, you guys won, congratulations. And to see that, I was like, oh, people know we won gold, and that our Olympics is really global. I went to sleep with my medal. I was rooming with Joshua Tisawa, so we looked at each other about this, like, hey, we should wear our medal when we go to bed. I said, yeah, because when we wake up, then okay. So we went to, like, I must sleep, and I wake up and I get them. I was like, oh yes, it happened. It really happened. I still got the medal with me. After the final, we celebrate like most of the athletes in the Olympic do. We celebrate with McDonald's. So yeah, because McDonald's was free, and we're always walking past McDonald's, on our way towards our condominium. We always went, and Ben was like, no boys, like there'll be a time for it. So we was like, okay, wait there. So we always walk past in the boat. So when we finish, we'll have 9 days. 9 days to celebrate, because we had 9 days to stay in the Olympic Village. Like as soon as we finished, we lined up at McDonald's and just, and at McDonald's in the Olympic, each person is allowed 20 items.
One of them would order 8 Big Mac, The other one would order 8 McChicken. Another would order 8 cheeseburgers. And this will only be 4 of them eating. Some fries, they won't order the drinks because the drinks are also free because they got those Coke machines. You just swipe your card and you get out the drinks. They'll come back with a whole lot of Maccas and just have a Macca party in the room.
And we got it, and we will start sharing it to the security that work. Oh, you want some McDonald's? To the people that work, the Brazilians that work in the village. Oh yeah, have some McDonald's. They were shocked, They were like, why are these people giving us a McDonald's? I'm like, just the Fijian in you. You have so much and you just want to share. So you're just happy. Okay, we got you some. And we got the security stuff.
So we spent a week after the gold medal. We even spent time with a little rugby club there in Brazil. They wanted us to come down and have a run with them at the beach.
So after, all the children from the favela, they were so small, but they wanted to change shirts so bad with us. And I was like, oh, we can't change shirts, you guys. And they said, we can wear your shirts. So we gave our shirts and we came back. Imagine Willy Mata and Nakarao, the small shirts, like a tank top, a girl's tank top. It was so small. We walked in and trying to pull the shirt down at the security. And then one of the boys, Masi, he didn't even have a shirt on. He said, that shirt can't fit. We walked into the security and the security looked at us funny. And we're like, oh, we're athletes. And he asked, oh, what you guys going to do outside? Oh, we went and helped out at the favela. And he said, go. I won't check it in. You guys go.
The guards just smiled, Brazilian guards, and just said, obrigado, and thank you.
Thank you indeed. That's so Fijian of them sharing the McDonald's around, coaching kids, spending time, just swapping shirts. Was that basically the rest of the 9 days that he talks about, Ben?
Most of it was them queuing in McDonald's, and then doing all of that stuff. And that, I love hearing those stories, and you can see that it just feels Oscar's face illuminates, when he talks about it, and it just was that was the norm for 3 years. They just did stuff without you saying any of this. I remember we were on a plane once where there were 2 suspected heart attacks on the plane, and the boys just took over the dinner service, for the flight attendants who were getting panicky and were handing out chicken or beef. And we didn't, that was another story, and we didn't want anyone, you don't need to sing about those sort of things because that's what your culture's all about. But I'd see it all the time. I'd see Oscar and the guys taking people's luggage off the carousels, when you're coming back, and it's the Fijian way. And so I'm immensely proud of those guys and hearing those stories because, you want to add value to the shirt you're wearing and to the medal you're wearing. And Osea and the boys, they certainly do that.
Tim, did you guys talk about what would happen if/when you win? Australia, you were so dominant going into that final. Your results had looked so good. You had to have known that your chances were very good. Is there any kind of pre-briefing on the logistics, where you stand, where you walk, what happens next, where we go? I mean, it's not every day you win an Olympic gold medal and go around being called the Golden Girls.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I think Scott Bowen was sort of managing all the logistics around it, and we weren't an outcome-based team. We were, playing what's in front of us and very process-driven. I know a lot of the families, the mothers and fathers, promised that they'd get tattoos if they won gold medal, which they did, and they followed through with it. But for me, coaching, you look at those. Those videos, and then after the match when the full time and siren had gone, when you see the girls climbing up 2 or 3 meters to get to their family and friends, they're the moments that you really cherish. They're the moments that you feel like this is why we're coaching for, to share this experience with some of them for 4 to 5 years and growing together as you go. I was a really young coach, and some might argue still am, but it's watching them grow, and then you grow with them, and then you come up and achieve it, and then you just see that emotion, and then you hear it, like Ben said, all these little stories that come out after it. They send goosebumps and make you feel immensely proud of being part of the Olympics. I think we've all watched that Last Dance with Michael Jordan, and you just saw the power of the Olympics in that in the NBA. Like, it went from millions of people to billions after the Olympics. It transcended into cultures, and this is the experience or the opportunity that rugby had. And then you get fantastic ambassadors and fantastic coach Ben Ryan to win with Fiji. It just sends vibrations through the world. And then from our point of view, you get these incredible athletes that hadn't even played rugby, and changed a perception of women's contact sport on the Olympic stage was just incredible to see. And then for all of us who love rugby, seeing it grow. And unfortunately, the Olympics postponed, but 2021 is just going to be just as good and something to grow from.
Can we talk about Ben Ryan being called Mr. Fiji by the USA basketballing dream team in the village across those 9 days?
Mr.
Fiji. Well, actually, like Tim said, rugby operates in a bit of a bubble, really. We're a big sport, but I think we don't realise just how big global sport is. And when we enter into the Olympic family, suddenly everything just supersizes. The American basketball team, they had watched the Fijian boys play. I'd gone to New York after the Olympics, and the staff of the New York Knicks had been watching the games in the locker rooms, so they all knew it. And then you go around and introduce to all the team, and Carmelo's there calling me Mr. Fiji, and it's just very surreal moment, really. That they sort of that it goes to those areas, And I've been stopped having a coffee in New York, and someone's come up to me and talked about it, walking over Brooklyn Bridge, and someone asked for a photo. I don't get any of that perhaps in England, but you get it overseas a lot, because the kind of that Olympic, that rugby spreads, and it's a cool story. And me and Tim have both been really lucky that we've got, we were that first time that we got back in, and both our teams, have got cool stories around them, which just kind of adds to, why we were voted in to get the Olympic sport in the first place.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense in those clips from Emma and some of the other Australian women's players that they were there with the awareness that they were laying the foundation for something that was going to grow and people are going to look back on. The one thing that still gives me a lump in my throat when I look back on it now is that those shots of the Fiji players singing on the pitch after the match, that makes me so incredibly emotional, and I don't know exactly why. Tell me about that singing and the part that forms in the Fijian culture.
Yeah, so we would, two things that I guess that the singing comes into. We would have a lotu in every morning and every evening, and lotu in Fijian means church. I'm not religious, but it's more of a spiritual thing, to be honest with you. So in the morning, we'll sit down, we'll have a song together. The boys, someone will lead the song to get the timing right. People will drop in and drop out. They do it brilliantly because they do it growing up in the village and in the schools. And then we'll have a little prayer that's normally around, look after everyone today, keep everyone safe, have a hug and go for breakfast, and repeat it in the evening. It's a cool way to start and stop the day. And then we did this kind of same in before and after games. Before a game, if the boys are in the mood, then they'd sing a song, and one of them would choose it. And then after the game, they would do the same. And then when we got to the Olympic final, they wanted to sing "We have overcome," "We shall overcome," and they sang half in English and half in Fijian. And that's a very cool moment, and none of that is. No, they hadn't sat down and talked about that. That's just part of the culture. Every Fijian team would do that afterwards. A lot of the Fijian teams now in the little local tournaments will be singing that after winning tournaments and stuff as a result of what the boys did. But it's something that's very hard to replicate in other teams. I think it's just something that's really true to the Fijian culture, and the boys want to make sure they're reminded of the culture, and the way that we play the game is very much playing in the present, not worrying too much about the future, chucking offloads left, right and centre, because that's what feels right, and then reacting to it a little bit quicker. And the whole thing's like that, so they don't feel worried about taking a knee to receive a gold medal, or giving out free burgers to security guards, because they're just in the present and they want people to be happy. And that was the joy. It's Fiji and sevens is a perfect mix, really, because the game of sevens, you can't hang on too much to things. You've got to stay in the present, and they do that so well.
Hey, Elma, singing was key to the Australian women's charge over there in Rio as well. Walsh, you take us back pre-game before the gold medal game. Run us through the boombox, what was coming out via the playlist, and would you give us a couple of bars of the songs that the women were singing before taking on New Zealand in the big one?
Don't want that.
Come on, mate.
When you've got such a diverse background of people, like it's, we always found it a real challenge, because you look at like Fiji, it's very Fijian culture, whereas you look at the Australian team, you've got all these diverse different backgrounds. It's a real challenge to try and get everybody having a voice and everybody believing and doing the same thing. And it took a bit of time, but yeah, we ended up with our own song, and we called it the Death Rattle, because every time teams heard it, it was like something was going to happen. But if you heard it, it wasn't really a death rattle. It was just a happiest time for these girls to feel good before they go out and play. So we had Chicken Fry by the Zach Brown Band, and that was our death rattle before each song. And then there were also other ones that sort of filtered into it. And I think Emma might have said it, but our first World Series win in Dubai in 2013 was Katy Perry's Roar, which was ended up being our acronym for the team that set our pillars. And that was sort of, you talk about culture or I don't know, foundations for it, but they came up with it, and then those sort of songs became very very relevant every time we played. But pre-dressing room, I think the similarities between Fiji and Australia and the two teams that won the gold medal were quite strong. Like we were there singing and dancing around. The manager had the light flicking on and off. It was like a nightclub in our dressing room. And I think I said last episode, people were walking past thinking we'd already won. But that was just how we prepared. We were relaxed, and that was our culture that we built. And you sort of see teams try and take what Fiji do and plug it into their system or something else. You can't do that, because it's different cultures, different environments, different backgrounds. So we sort of developed our own, and it became that we needed to feel good and find that balance before we went out and played. But pre-game was fun, and you wouldn't think that these girls were about to go and play an Olympic final, because you're always sort of like, oh, it's serious and nervous, and your partner. It was the opposite, and you just got that flow or that feeling like we're not going to lose this game, because just the state that they were in, the experience they had, they were ready.
I think Tim struck upon a vital point for like any aspiring coaches or people that are setting up teams. If you do try to transplant something or take something that you do as a coach and just think it's going to work somewhere else, then you're never going to get authenticity, and also unless it's actually been agreed by the people that are doing it. So for the Fijian boys, it's an easy thing. We'd never have to go on a weekend away for team building with a Fijian team, because they understand culture and they understand family and togetherness, and it's the same with the Aussie girls. They've decided something's going to be theirs, they've owned it, and then when it gets put under pressure, because it's owned by everybody, it's so much harder to break. And that's what good culture is all about, creating that where everyone feels safe in it to be their best version.
Let's maybe just quickly, before we move on, take a look at the significance of the fact that both your events were very early in the Olympics. So it was opening ceremony, women's tournament, men's tournament. And then, as Osea says, Ben, you could tell them, listen, you're going to have time for McDonald's afterwards, so just focus on this now. You could take their phones and knock it away. And then, Tim, after you guys won, you shipped out pretty soon, but the rest of your team stayed on. Had the event perhaps been later during the Olympics, how much of a difference do you think that would make in your planning? Let's start with you, Tim.
Yeah, we just would have stayed out of the village for a fair bit longer, probably come in a bit later as well. Like, we knew that the distractions are probably one of the biggest inhibitors to performance. So I thought it was a real blessing that we were at the start. And just mentally, you're going to get fatigued by the second week. There's just so much going on and the pressure building up. So it was a real blessing not only to be the first rugby team to go out and play, but to be start of the Olympics as well. So, yeah, the prep would have definitely changed. Probably wouldn't have been as fun for the girls either, because they wouldn't have had 9 to 10 days to bathe in the glory and enjoy the Olympics. Like you said, I went home. It was my 2-year-old's birthday and wanted to be home with my wife, but I was getting phone calls every couple of hours, drunk ones generally, trying to negotiate contracts and tell me what they're up to, and the odd story that I had to like block my ears from. But yeah, it was great to be home, but it was they deserved it, you know. And Scotty Bowen was actually the one over there looking after them, and I think by the end of it, he was poking himself in the eye. He was ready to come home.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the footage from the journey home.
Something that I've never seen before, to bring the country together, like that many people. And people asked me, Oscar, when did you really know you won the Olympics? I said, when I reached home. It's like it's settling when I reach home and you see these people just with flags, just there, you know, happy faces. And all my life growing up in Fiji, I haven't seen that. You know, I haven't seen a sporting team, somebody do that, where brings the people together, and people are just there waiting, and you know, just excited for what had happened.
So not only was it celebrated on the main island, the boys were flown over to Nualevu as well to meet the people of Fiji in that area. And the good thing about it is that, you know, most of these Fijians living in that side of the island, and by the players going across to them, they're able to shake the players' hands, you know, see them face to face, and also give the players their thank you messages.
When we got in the bus, and it was a Sunday, you know, like a Sunday. It was around close to 6 p.m. on a Sunday. And we're on the bus going, and we see these 2 old ladies come back from church in their church clothes and their Bible. And then they see our bus coming. And she runs in front of the bus and starts doing press up. Another old lady. And we just cracked up, like, you know, like, to me, that shows how happy. And you know, I said, look at an old lady doing a press up in her church clothes. It's like she forgot it was Sunday. She put her Bible down and started doing press up in front of the bus. And just the impact it has on people in Fiji. So
on the way home, we got to fly business, so we got to sit up the front with all the other medal winners. Which was really cool and really special. And you know, you're like, oh, that girl won gold in this and she won gold in that, and you knew everyone and you knew everyone's story. So it was cool to be able to talk to everyone on the plane, you know, that had won and been through the same thing. And we flew into the hangar in Sydney Airport, the Qantas hangar. And we kind of came down the big stairs at the front of the plane, and all family and friends were allowed to be there. That was really special. We got to walk down and kind of like wave at everyone. So we came down and then got to see our parents straight off the plane. Yeah, that was awesome.
Tell me about that homecoming, Tim. That looks like a pretty serious crowd assembled. Australia obviously has a proud Olympic tradition, some serious heritage, but this was a first.
Yeah, and I think that's when it probably hit home. I mean, they won the gold medal and they're out there in Rio enjoying, you know, probably an environment where they were somewhat comfortable in. And then they're flying back to Australia, and like you said, like the Aussies take Olympics incredibly seriously, and sometimes too seriously. But they've landed on the back in Sydney, and it all started for them. Like that's what they probably weren't prepared for. You know, they were whisked off to different media outlets, and then went into their local outlets when they did finally get home. So they went from more or less a little bit unknown to superstars in their communities and in Australia. But I mean, I couldn't wait to see them because I hadn't seen them for a couple of weeks since the event, and then they came down and they actually knackered actually. But again, you see those moments when Chloe Dalton's grandmother was there to meet her and just in absolute awe and proud, and she's in tears, and then the media are pulling everybody everywhere, and I think they were happy to be home, but I don't think they realised what was actually going to eventuate over the next couple of weeks.
Shawnee, how significant was this for women's rugby?
It wasn't just here in Australia that it took off. So if you fast forward a few months on from Walshy and the women getting back into Australia and getting their plaudits, you roll on from there to Dubai, and this story and this night still stays with me so much. We finished the weekend's play at the Dubai Sevens, and I'm inside at the HSBC suite. I think I might have been with Benny and a couple of others, and with Brian O'Driscoll as well. And he's sitting there going on and on about how amazing Charlotte Caslick is, or in the Olympics, blah, 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 on and on and on about it. And someone had G'd up Charlotte to come in wearing an Ireland jersey and give him a pat on the back and say, hey, how's it going? Like, g'day, I'm Charlotte. And she did. She comes wandering in the Irish jersey, gave him the tap, and he was like starstruck. He lost, and this is very rare for Brian O'Driscoll. He was short a couple of words. So that just gave me like an idea as to how far these women had rightfully been elevated in world rugby standings, that you've got a World Rugby Hall of Famer starstruck by Charlotte Caslick off the back of what they did in Rio. It was so good to see.
Tim, that was you.
Yeah, it was very funny. I remember we organised Charlotte to Jersey, and then I deliberately started the conversation with Brian, and he was like, "It's the best pass I've ever seen. It's ridiculous." And Charlotte standing right behind him, and I said, "What, that girl?" And then he turned around, and then he was like, "Oh," and it was very funny, very funny. And like Shawnee said, one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and he's in awe by this girl's skill and determination and success in the game of rugby.
Those images from Fiji, Ben, the 22nd of August was a public holiday, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I think we had 2 or 3 days of public holidays around that as well. So it didn't really end. And it was mental. I mean, like, Rapati said, and Osea, carnage everywhere. You land, and then the bus hardly is able to move with the amount of crowds. It's only 1 million people in Fiji, but I think all of them were out those days. And when you go to Nandi to the stadium there, Prince Charles Park, and then that was full, and then you do a few things there, and then we flew across to the capital, and it's the same there, and then the following day, and it just kept rolling, and it was amazing to see such a unification of the country, that all the different ethnicities and their ages, and everybody was just together, and that was super cool. And like Oscar said, I don't think Fiji's had anything around that before, but hopefully they will subsequently in the next few cycles of the Olympics.
So, Shawnee, you managed to jet in. Were there a lot of Fijians heading home to go join in the celebrations along with you guys from Australia?
They did a good enough job of it on their own there on the island, like even in the place that we stayed in. So we'd take a camera around with the people who we were staying with in the resort there on the Coral Coast near Singatoka, and throw a camera in front of them, say, take us through the moments. And again, like people, we'd show them back the highlights of the game that had been played out 10 days earlier, and they would just break down in tears. No one could string a sentence together because they were so overcome with emotion around it. It's real. Like I said at the top, Elma, it's so hard to describe how much it means to them in a country where material possessions, and I know Benny will have spoken about this across the first 2 eps, mean nothing, but it's all about the togetherness, and they were all so unified behind Ben and his men. It was special, and I think it kind of transcended sport. It was more of a human touch that made it so incredible. It was something like I can still recall it so vividly because it was so unbelievably special.
It did transcend sport because, as the boys say, Fiji is a tiny little dot in the middle of the Pacific, and often they feel that they kind of make up the numbers in global society, and that there is a glass ceiling that things aren't possible. And I think after the Olympics and the gold medals and the kids seeing all of this, the following week we had a girls' rugby match at the National Stadium that was 30,000 people watching the school's rugby match because they just wanted to watch some rugby. It was the next thing that happened after the Olympics. And for me, it was that maybe that the next generation can think they can get a degree, they can become doctors, they can become lawyers, or whatever they want to do. And the Olympics just helped shift their thinking that things are possible, and that Fiji might be a small dot in the middle of the Pacific, but it doesn't mean that you can't do what you want to do and fulfill your dreams. And I think that was the kind of vibe that we had in Fiji over those following weeks.
Just shift the horizon, of what you might see for yourself in the future. One thing I'm pretty sure most rugby coaches don't see for themselves in the future is popping up on coins, banknotes, and stamps. These are the kind of things that to me, it's absolutely incredible to think that there is money and actual postage material out there in the world. We're celebrating your achievements. Is that the weirdest thing that happened, Ben?
It's in the top 5 probably. Yeah.
Okay.
There was all sorts of stuff that happened in the following times, and I guess anybody that's been to Fiji will know that, like, if the Fijians like you, then they really like you, and they'll do everything they can. So that they wanted to show their affection, I guess. So it was 50-cent pieces and $7 bills and stamps. It was the giving me some land and giving me awarding me a high civil honour, and then I guess the weirdest thing probably was the chiefly ceremony. The senior chief, who unfortunately passed away yesterday, who's my namesake, Ratu Penny Latinara, he handed over chiefly status to me, and that was weird because I had to start the whole thing by finding the whale's tooth that the women of the villages had got. So that they had a whale's tooth, and they had to run towards Penny and I had to intercept him and find the whale's tooth, and that would start the ceremonies. So I had my Sulu on, my skirt on, and my nice white legs going hard, trying to chase these women down. And then I saw where they were. They're like a peloton with the woman with a ginger wig, and she had the whale's tooth. And so I went to grab it off her. I thought she'd just pass it to me. That's part of everyone's really nice. But she just gave me a see you later, and off I went a couple of yards backwards. So I thought I better take it seriously. So I ran through. I grabbed it off her, and then that began the ceremony, and that was mental. That was absolutely mental. I'd go into these tents where the villagers are, and I'd go in with one shirt, and I'd come out with another shirt because they'd ripped my top off and then put a new shirt on that represented their village. And it just continued like that. And they all gave me mats from the villages that they'd all knitted individually for me, that I then had to have a big shipping container to take all that stuff back to the UK. And then when I did leave to go back to London, and I got to the airport in Nandi, the airport staff had decided that they would just stop everything in the airport, and all the staff formed a choir, and then they sang Isolé and Goodbye to Me. And so these random travellers that are flying in from Fiji are thinking, what the hell are they doing? Singing this, and everything stopped for about 5 minutes. And that was just ridiculous as well. I didn't get that in Terminal 5 when I landed at Heathrow. Crazy times.
Unfortunately not. Tim, do you still have the stamps that you guys were on? What's your prized keepsake?
This right here, actually, it's one of my most treasured memories, and it's very eloquently written down the bottom about how much my experience with them sort of touched their lives and made them better people and added them value. So, I have some of the most incredible memories. The stamps, as soon as I found out that the girls were on stamps, I went and bought, I don't know, thousands of them, and I've got them sort of stored away and use them. I'll probably send them a letter in 20 years' time with that stamp on it or something like that. But Yeah, like some amazing memories, and there's been some moments that from after that time that the girls have done little things for me that are really touching and very creative, and we sort of prided ourselves on creativity, and a lot of laughter and a lot of cherished memories there.
Beautiful stuff. So let's take a look at how this has changed the lives of the other guests that we've featured along this journey, and also their countries.
I feel like it really changed Fiji, and especially youngsters growing up. That something can bring a country together, like sport. And if we can do that in sport, why can't we do it in other aspects of our life? And I'm happy that we showed young generations that are coming up, that they can be Olympic gold medalists, no matter if you're in Fiji or what areas of life they're in. You can do the impossible, and you can achieve your dream. And it changed the way some of the children want to do. Now most of the athletes, like some of the athletes that do athletics, they switch. They're like, oh, I have a chance of getting an Olympic medal if I go to rugby, because with them, like, athletics is huge in school, but it's really not looked after back home. But then a lot of young girls are switching to rugby than to athletics, because they know they have a chance of going to the Olympics. And that changed Fiji a lot, and becoming a first having medal in the Olympic. No one has done it before, and in bringing people together. And I hope that it continues that way, and rugby brings in a lot more athletes, and I hope that one day other Fijians will be gold medalists at the Olympics.
I was just glad that I had my teammates there with me to experience it, because I think that's a really special thing, to experience that with the girls that you've put in so much time and effort and relied on each other. So it was really special to experience that with them, and I'm glad I had them by my side. It was lovely, and everyone was really happy for us and kind of recognised rugby a little bit more. So that was really special.
It's beautiful to see. Sean, what was the impact on Australian rugby?
We still get to see the benefit of the impact that the Australian women made on the game here in Australia, Elma, and that was franked. Walsh, was it a year or 2 years later, Sydney Sevens. So they just started a snowball off the back of Rio. There was a bit of a vibe around them, but it just snowballed and snowballed. Sydney Sevens, the year that they did the double, the women and the men did the double, and the women scored 213-4 and didn't concede a single point, not one. That's never been number 4 and will never be done again on the World Series. And that was like a further reinforcement as to the impact that they've made on the game here in Australia. That game outrated the men's final by a whole heap. So they had made their mark off the back of what Walshy and those women got to do back in 2016. And we continue to see the benefit now. The local sevens competitions here in Sydney, where a lot of other areas are struggling in rugby, the local junior sevens and even up into the teen years are thriving. They're flourishing. They are flying at the moment, and it's thanks to Charlotte Caslick, M. Cherry, Champagneri, Shani Williams, M. Tonegado, Elia, the rest of them. They made a huge difference for the game here in Oz.
Not only, I think, the impact that they had on rugby, but it was the whole of women's sport, particularly women's contact sport. Like, you see them go out there and win and exposed at the Olympics on the most wonderful platform to do it. But then straight after that, or 6 months, a year after, NRLW, AFLW, women's contact sport just took off. And it was the catalyst of what those girls achieved in that event. So I don't think it was isolated to just rugby, but to the whole of women's contact sport.
A study showed something like 17 million fan growth across only 6 markets surveyed after that Olympic Games. So the inclusion of rugby, or the return of rugby for the first time in 92 years, certainly based just on that number, seems to have been a massive boon to the sport. But Ben, your kind of global appeal, the fact that you've been able to go across, as you say, and go to the States, the success of your book, and the fact that that's now being made into a movie, the significance of the way that rugby returned to the Olympics. We'll probably still, kind of see that yield results even after the Olympic Games that we'll now see in 2021.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this is once every 4 years, this is this golden opportunity to give rugby a real boost and to make the most of it. And so I think, that it's really important that for the next Olympic Games, whatever happens there and whoever the stories emerge from winning gold medals in the men's and the women's, that we can really try to grab that and go with it as hard as possible to get into those areas that we just don't get into normally. And yeah, look, I think that we were very lucky that, like I said, I think the women's game just showed the quality of athlete that's playing rugby sevens and the excitement that the game can generate, and the opportunities it can for younger people to come into the sport. And for the men, it was cool for the Olympics just to have a non-traditional medal winning team, country at the top. That Fiji just had never won a medal in 100 years, not got even close. And that was one of the things the IOC wanted. They wanted to see different countries hitting podiums, and I think that's what's so cool about rugby sevens, that you look at who's flying around at the moment, doing things. There's so many teams that are non-traditional countries that have that opportunity to spread the game to a wider audience.
I guess, Shawnee, that's what sevens brings to rugby in general.
Yep, it does, and I always describe it as the gateway form of the sport, because it's so enthralling, it's so engaging, it captures kids, which is the key thing. Because if the kids are into it, their mum and dad are going to follow, and then who knows where they might become a future star on 7 circuit, or maybe they bounce over to 15. So I think that's the appeal of it, and that it was there in the Olympics. It's almost like a validation. So you watch these guys go through, and women also. So I use Ellia Green as an example, because I saw her as a person who first came to the sport who was struggling. She was not the right style of fitness that Walsh was after, all that. And I saw that progression. So you get buy-in to these people the same way you do the Fijian team and all those other sides. So then when they hit that Rio peak, or they hit that Olympic peak, you feel like you've been a part of it on the way through, and they get everything they deserve, because it is such a challenging, awesome game to master. And then when you see them up on the podium, you feel like you've been a part of it, and that's kind of special.
Looking ahead to Tokyo, Ben, will we see some more success for Fiji? Who are your favourites? I know we're now a year out, but who are your favourites for the upcoming Olympics?
It's very, very hard to look beyond Fiji being there or thereabouts, and particularly with what's going on at the moment with the lockdown. If there's one country that can still run a full-time sevens program and have competition in their country at a really high level, it's Fiji. We used to take the national team to various island tournaments, and you get beaten by some people. And I think I talked about it in the first episode. I saw the Hilton hotel staff give Argentina a good kick in the first week I was there in Fiji, and so they're going to get tournaments, they're going to get robust and resilient, and I think this gap in international sevens is going to help them. And then I think New Zealand have been very good about doing how they've gone about things, and that I'm sorry to carry on with the traditionals, but then South Africa, I just remember them losing the 7-5, the semi-final to Great Britain, and they were really unlucky, and they were going in as one of the favourites, and I was certain we would end up playing them in the final. And Siabella, broke his wrist, I think, kicking the ball out in the quarter-final in random fashion and missed the semis, all that sort of stuff. They had a lot of stuff that went against them in the Olympics, and they were in the dining hall after we had just won our semi-final and they had lost. and they're coming up to you and they're being really courteous and they're talking to you and they're wishing you good luck, and they're just doing it in the right way. They're showing humility, and I just thought, this is a team that is going to be successful. And they went to win 2 back-to-back World Series titles straight after. But I think still those memories of what happened or didn't happen in Rio, with the same coaching staff and a lot of the same players, I think they'll bounce back hard in Tokyo, and they're going to be a real force. And of course, the curveballs, the USA and the Argentinas and the Kenyas and these guys, as well as Great Britain, who are having a really tough time at the moment with COVID and this unsettling period. There's going to be some strange fixtures and results that we're going to see in a few months, and that's just going to add to the drama, that the Olympics already gives us.
Tim, have you got some predictions that you're willing to make when it comes to particularly the women's?
Yeah, I think New Zealand obviously have a point to prove, and I think that pressure is just going to keep on building. So I think the Aussies can use that to their advantage. And then, as Ben pointed out, Fiji in a wonderful place to prepare, but just being in the Southern Hemisphere, you've got 3 of the top 4 teams in the men's. The women's, you got the top 2 or 2 of the top 4 in this little bubble area where you can actually really make some gains. And I think, in sevens, you always have to adapt, and you're culturally right, you can always look at the positives. And I think it's just it just gives Australia another year to prepare, another year to use the environment of which they're in to get better. But look, I think New Zealand are going to be tough to beat. And then Australia, Canada, USA and the French. I think it's going to be very competitive, and I don't think you could just go straight in and say it's going to be an Australia-New Zealand final. I think it's going to be a lot more hotly contested on the women's side of things. And the men, you didn't mention Australia, Ben, in your men's prediction. I think
I was leaving that to so that's, yeah.
Shawnee, you can mention Australia if you want.
It's going to be an Australian double. Quite clearly, it's going to be an Australian double, and they will party hard in Tokyo, and I will assist them every step of the way in Roppongi. How does that sound?
You'll lead the way.
But yeah, they're right, Elma. Like the women's too hard to pick outside of the obvious favourite, New Zealand, and then the men's side, it's too open, and there's too many variables between now and Tokyo 2021. I think to have a clear cut winner, because there is so much still to play out. We don't even know how many tournaments we might have between now and then, which will obviously have a huge impact on who wins gold in Tokyo.
Okay, guys. To wrap up, I'd like Ben and Tim, for you both, to maybe leave us with how the Olympics and winning gold changed you.
Crikey, how long have you got? I mean,
there's literally a book dedicated to it. But
that's it. Yeah, that would be the perfect answer. Seven's Heaven, available on Amazon and many other different book sellers outlets, is available now both in paperback, hardback, and Kindle versions, and also on audio. But if you I guess, to sum it up for me, I was very, very fortunate. I had an incredibly talented group of players. We had a cool story wrapped around it, and I had a management group that, I felt like I was getting these massive hugs every day to make me feel like everything was going in the right direction. And then I've had so many opportunities on the back of the Olympics. It's taken me to some amazing places and given me lots of opportunities to help kind of talk about how cool rugby is and sevens, and spread the game as much as I can, and I hope I can continue to do that, and I hope that whoever wins the gold medals in the next cycle latches onto some of the opportunities that I've done, and because it's just it's a unique situation for us all to be in, really, and you get that one opportunity, and somebody will take it, and they'll hopefully then be a good ambassador for the game across the globe.
Yeah, it sounds a bit corny, but the Olympics didn't sort of change me too much. It was the people I worked with, and what the players sort of bestowed on me was a better communication, emotional intelligence, and just a lot of fun, enjoying the hard work. And then the staff as well, Scotty Bowen and Craig Twentyman and Johnny Manenti, who's coaching the team now, just combined and learnt different skills. And then as a whole, to be involved in sevens and see it grow. And, we're talking about it being, Shawnee talking about being a gateway, but it really has the power to inspire, innovate and include. And it's one of the major reasons why I kept going. I did flirt with the idea of knocking it on the head after a gold medal, but I think this game's got so much to offer, and the Olympics being the catalyst to it, or the launching pad to it.
One of the things that makes, in my opinion, these two guys a cut above is that in every experience that they seem to have, whether it's with a player, staff member, someone auxiliary at a tournament, it's always people first. It's always with a level of humility and respect, and that's obviously what they've instilled in their players across the years, and it shines through. So for me, that's why they sit at the top with gold medals around their neck, because it's always people first and the rugby comes secondary. There's a great perspective that both Tim Walsh and Ben Bryan bring to rugby, and we're all the better for it.
Oh,
thanks,
beautiful
Shawnee.
tribute.
Thank
and
you.
Aw.
Ben Bryan
so
says
sweet
thank you
right
very
now.
much, Sean.
Ben Bryan has a ring to it, and I think we should maybe start using that. That can be your stage name.
Ben-
Welcome, Ben
Could be a
Bryan.
range
and
of-
Tim Walsh.
range of underwear for
Well, that brings to an end part 3 of Mind of a Champion. Keep following World Rugby on all of your favorite social media platforms, as this is the sport, as Tim Walsh says, that inspires, innovates and includes, and there is plenty to look forward to with the Olympic Games on the horizon. Ben Ryan / Brian, Tim Walsh and Sean Maloney, thank you.